A little bit of extra background noise, but the weather is gorgeous and thus my windows are open. Thank goodness, last couple of weeks have actually been really beautiful weather here on the east coast of the US, which has been a wonderful treat. But occasionally we get an airplane or something flying nearby. Causes a little bit of noise. Shouldn't be that bad though. Let's see here. Other things going on. Last week we did kind of a recap of how everything was going. The project was looking really good. We only had a couple more features to do, and we had a few more bug fixes to work on, but we will, of course, be fixing bugs for a very, very long time. So I'm not using that to declare victory. But I do want to continue working on the features and see if we can get feature complete for our project. So the very first thing I'm going to do is mistype something, which is always a great way to start. Looks like it has started up okay though. It's just an extra slash. So let's check out. Yep, it is being hosted fine. We're using Google App Engine. Here's our current system. So for those who are not familiar with this application, we're going to do a quick recap. So this is a tool to do software design and development. The idea behind this tool that we're building is that it generates code in other languages. So we are not just, so we're using JavaScript to generate maybe C# or MySQL or really whatever. I'm not terribly picky about the target language. So we'll do an example here so you guys can get a feel. So let's go ahead and make a music database. All right, maybe we haven't done the music example in a while. All right, so we would add an entity, right? And so for music, we would say that would be a song, right? That's really the heart of any music database, I would say. And the song has a title, which is a string. And it has an artist. Actually, in fact, it would probably have a list of artists, right? It might be more than one artist, so we have a few artists. And then we'll have a publish date. And that would be a date. Date, there we go. Okay, so then we would create an artist entry, right? Who is it that is performing the song? And so that would be name, which would be a string, and I don't know, what else would we say about an artist? Maybe the instrument they played on this particular track, right? Right, and maybe that's an array. So we would say that, not Boolean. It's a list of strings. Maybe they, can play more than one thing, rhythm, guitar, and lead vocals, that kind of thing. And then here for our artist, and there's a bunch of ways that you could model this. This is just one that's coming to mind real quick. And so we're going to reference artist. So now our song references the artist. So I have title, the artist, publish date, and maybe the song, we'll also give it a genre, right? Maybe we want a specific list of genres, so we can create an enumeration, which will be genres. And we'll just say pop, rock, country, disco, techno, just a bunch of different genres. And so now our song can also reference a genre. So you can see how you can very quickly start building up a model of something, right? In this particular case, we're building up a music library of songs, and not necessarily a list of albums, although you could certainly get into albums and tracks, and then remix CDs and what. I mean, you could go as deep and crazy into this as you wanted to. But this is a very music-focused, song-centric music model. Now, once we have that in place, we can go ahead and say, hey, all right, generate me some JavaScript. And you click JavaScript, and here it is, right? music.song, that has title, artist, publish date, genre, right? And then if you scroll down, your music.artist has a name and the instruments that they played. In this case, it didn't properly note that that would have been an array, so there's a little bit of work that needs to be done with this code. But this is valid JavaScript code. You can actually take this JavaScript code and copy and paste it into a document or even into the JavaScript console. So we can just copy and paste it in there, and then you can do music.song, right, and then it'll return an object. And that object that it returns has an artist, genre, other properties, publish date, and title. So there you go. It's a quick, dirty way to generate the boring code that you would normally have to write by hand. And so that was pretty good. Then you take into the fact that you can go over here to render code again, go over to MySQL. It'll download a file, which is something that I want to do with the JavaScript, because I find having the files downloaded really nice. Right? And then here we go. Here is the genres, right? The enumeration for the genres table, the ID, the genre, the friendly name for it. Let's see here. Yep. So this has an internal standardized string, and then it also has a user-friendly string. In this case, the only difference is capitalization, but if there's like a space in there or something like that, it's nice to have a database-friendly version. But then here's the song table with, again, the song ID, title, publish date, genre, whether or not it's active, and when was that entry created. And then here's a cross-reference table in our database, song artist to artist. So this is what gives us a relationship, right, for this one-to-many, this song having many artists. That gives us the relationship for this one-to-many relationship. So that is kind of the basics of what we're doing here. So it's good to see you folks back. Hi, Anastasia. It's good to see you online. I know we got a couple other folks here. It's great to see them. Glad to have folks along. So it's taken us a while to get this far, although we only work on this for a couple hours a week, so it's not that surprising it's taken a while. Oops. So what else do we want to do? So we have properties, and they work, and they appear to fully work, or at least near fully work. So that works for entities. Enumerations are working. They're loading, they're editing, they're saving. Notes work. We can create a note. New note. Hi, this is a note. Right, and then you can stick this note has content, which doesn't get rendered, I don't think. Yeah. And then you can attach it to something. I don't know if that actually does anything. No, right now it really doesn't do anything. I'm not super thrilled with the way that we handle notes. I wanted to make sure that we had something. I think next time around, I'm just going to make notes part of each of these entities, that you can just annotate a genre, an interface, or an entity with a note, as opposed to having these free-floating notes that get kind of discombobulated from everything else. We'll see. All right. So interfaces, we can add an interface. Interface that does stuff. And then if you wanted, you could have this song inherit from an interface that does stuff. And then you could also have your artist inherit from interface that does stuff. And your interface that does stuff can do a whole bunch of things. And you start building complex relationships like this. Interfaces can also inherit from other interfaces. They cannot inherit from classes. I know in some programming languages they allow you to do that. That's something that I put in as a limitation, just because I think from a good software engineering standpoint, an interface should not inherit from a class. A class should always be more concrete than an interface. Otherwise, you're really breaking the meaning of the interface. I'm looking at you, JavaScript, where anybody can do whatever they want, and Perl. So, the entities works in terms of the properties and the parents, and the interfaces works in terms of the parents. If I create another interface, right, I have my new interface, and this interface that does stuff, can reference that new interface, and they'll cascade. The other thing that's nice is it keeps track of that, and I can't create a circular interface reference because, again, I know in some programming languages you can do that, but that's bad juju. Circular references are always a bad idea, which is why some languages explicitly prohibit them. I think that's generally a good thing to explicitly prohibit. Let's see. Enums are good to go. Notes are good enough to go for now. So the only thing that we're missing are the methods. Now, we had a fair amount of discussion last week about methods and how they relate to properties. A method signature is the same as a property signature. There's no real difference between a function and a property, except for the fact that a function or method takes parameters. That's really the only difference between the two. Some languages embrace that, like JavaScript. Other languages, like C# don't. It depends on how strongly the language is typed and how much they embrace that. But I do like the clear delineation between the two. Most languages do have a mechanism like delegates or lambdas to abstract that a bit. But I think it is certainly worth creating that distinguishing characteristic here. Now, we can create, I believe, methods. I can add a method, yep, and then it gives me a name, right, which goes here. Notice that these don't match. That says undefined. That says new method. We can fill it in. It has a return type, and again, I can return any of these base types or the things that I've defined. So I can return a song, right? So maybe this is find song or something. I don't know. And multiplicity, again, is it going to find one? Is it going to find a list? Probably makes sense for find a song to find a list of songs. And then whether or not it's static or deprecated. Any custom attributes. This is a catch-all. I'm probably going to remove it because I don't have any use for it just yet. And then parameters. So this is where we start saying a song, the find song function requires a certain number of parameters. Again, it could be a method, could be a function. Depends on your language or which exact nomenclature you use. So, what's going on here? We're seeing a lot of red, and that is because our API has no mechanism for creating or updating new methods. Right, so that's why we're throwing all of these 500 errors. So we need to create a table to hold the methods, a table for the parameters, and then the question is, do we actually keep those together in line with or separate from the properties? Now, if you look at these methods, this is a much more simplified version of the properties. We don't have quite the lengthy defaulting mechanisms and whatnot. Well, so certainly for this, it doesn't have the default selection, right? Because that would be for the return of the method. And we're not going to have this get into the implementation of the method. We just want to be able to declare the method so that we can put a stub in there so the whole thing can go together, and then whoever's developing it can figure out what they want the guts to be. When you're dealing with the parameters, right, we can look and see is a single, maybe date, right? And then if it has a default value or something like that. Not all languages allow default values and parameters. Some do, some don't. There we go. It can be optional or not. And then when we click done, it says, hey, we have a bunch of updates to the parameters for this, and tries to save them, and it fails. So this is what we're going to be working on tonight. It is the last major feature of this product before we start allowing alpha access and start enabling people to be able to create their own code renderers to program in whatever language they want. So Anastasia on LiveCoding is saying that she was talking with a professor who told her that JavaScript was not a good environment for metaprogramming, that it was kind of impossible to do, and she thinks that he is wrong. I would say that it had been wrong for a while. There's been some things going on in JavaScript that have enabled it a little more flexibility and power. One of which is actually the ability to do this blob code download, where I can just download a file of output that up until very recently, some of those functions haven't existed. So I'm not surprised that there's still a bunch of people that said this can't be done, because for a while it couldn't be done. But now it can. So we're doing it because we can. Okay. So one of the first things we want to do is look at the data structures. So this is going for method update.php. Of course, doesn't exist. That doesn't exist in our API, so we're going to need to deal with that. One of the first things I want to do, though, is compare a property with a method. And I think, yeah, they are related, and so I will probably start by using a clone of the property table. But I want to reduce the amount of columns, because in a method table, you don't have nearly, you're not going to have this hidden field. You're not going to have this required field, especially when you get to things like integer, right? Min value, max value, length. These don't normally apply to a function parameter. Now, you could design a meta language around it that you fill those in and it would check those. It would generate the code to check those for you automatically, which has some attractiveness to it. But I think for now we're just going to keep it fairly simple. So we're going to use the existing property table as the template for our so the member table and property table for our method table. So let's log into MySQL, and I will zoom this in for y'all. Okay. And let's use Draco model. Hope I can type. This is why LiveCoding is so fun. Watch me screw up all the time. Okay, so we have this member table. That's the one that we're going to use as our prototypical table. In fact, I wonder if somebody has out there MySQL duplicate table. Is there a way to do it? Oh, look at that. Create table, new table, like old table. Didn't have that one at the top of my head, but I will grab that. So let's do method TBL, like member TBL. All right. Alter table. Oh, yeah, method table. And then it's time to drop some columns, right? So the source one was much more thorough than this one, so we're just going to column. We're just going to drop some stuff. Like length. And maximum value, minimum value. Maximum value v, minimum value v, let's see here, what else do we got? Contains has got to go, maximum list side has got to go. Default to now has got to go. let's see. Let's make that a little wider. Yeah, there we go. A little easier to read. All right, member ID we're going to have to rename to method ID. Name we want to keep. Owner we should keep. That's a security thing. Model that has to keep. Public ID we got to keep. Static is actually one of the properties. Primary key, that is, there's no way that a column in this table can be a primary key. That doesn't make sense, right? Having a method be a primary key. Oh, it does autocomplete. Scale can go. Hidden can go. Let's see here. Static should stay around. Deprecated should stay around. Dictionary key type should stay around, I think. Yes. Data type should absolutely stay around, so that would be the return data type. Default value doesn't make sense. Okay. Default value v. Minimum list size. Multi-line goes away. Something just whooped at me. I have no idea what the heck that was. That's new. Sorry if I'm ignoring somebody who's whooping at me somehow. Multi-line, yeah, precision. So all of these just gotta go. Because a return type from a function is a lot simpler than all of the possibilities. Required. Again, that doesn't make any sense. It's the return type. Because if it isn't required, then it would probably return null. Custom attributes, I'm going to leave alone for now. Multiplicity stays. Entity foreign key stays, right? What are we attaching this method to? Active and when it was created. So all of those stay. So let's take a look at our new method table. So it's a lot more trim than it was when we started. Member ID, name, owner, what model it's part of, what user owns it, what a public varchar ID, whether or not this method is static or not, whether or not this method has been declared deprecated or not. If it's a dictionary, if it returns a dictionary, what is the key type of the dictionary? What is the data type of the result? Are there any custom attributes? Again, I'm leaving that alone for now. What is the multiplicity of the return type? So is it a single int, an array of int, what have you? What entity is this method attached to? Is it active? And when was it created? Yes, I think that will do lovely. All right. So let's do a few things. First of all, before we get too far into the code, I am going to delete this whole folder because it was old crap that I was keeping around. Just be careful. And that too. And we don't need either of those. We've been on this route long enough. We don't need those. So let's go ahead and check out our git status. And yeah, we deleted a whole bunch of stuff. Git rm dot rm-r. That was the wrong thing. Holy crap. Oh my god. This is the part where I start panicking because I typed in the wrong git command. Git checkout head, copy. See, this is why I don't like Git, folks. It is too easy to screw up. Paste. Git, yes. Head dot. Git status. All right, so those folders I deleted, they're back. Delete. Okay. Let's try that again. And now I think, can I get commit directory? Okay, so I can do this. Yes. From my tool. Excellent. Removed excess files. Commit and push. Push. 31 files committed, removed excess files. Remember your password. I am not worried about that on my personal VM inside my other machine. Push successful. Git status. Git pull. Git log. All right, removed excess files. Great. Okay. Well, in that case, I will probably use Git from within PHP Storm if it has it built in there and is less likely to cause me to make horrible, horrible mistakes like I almost just made. So, all right. Back to the grind here, though. So we have a database table for the things that we needed things for, which is great. So let's go ahead and look at, again, we know that this is all based off of member. And so we're going to take this and we are going to make sure that it's called method create. Right, method date. Yeah, okay, so there's method create.php. And there is no such thing as method create here. It's strange that we're not seeing a result come back with some kind of error, considering that the page doesn't exist, which means I think that we'd be getting a 404, but we're not. That's all right. Let's go ahead and we'll do method dash create.php. And we will add that to Git. All right, and we'll insert into method table. Again, public ID, owner, and model. That's all standard stuff that we do as we create it. We create the initial object, and then we start adding more things to it as the user fills them out. ID, owner, model on duplicate key. Okay, we create that. Owner, model, ID. So none of this really changes, right? This SQL Server statement, or I'm sorry, MySQL statement. We use our same connection string, username and password. And then we prepare this create statement, and then we execute the query, and we call it a day. That might actually be all there is to that third of this. So we're going to go ahead and refresh. And let's go ahead and pull up music. All right, so a lot of these old references and whatnot, these loaded up again. That makes me very, very happy. Now, our find song function, method, whatever you want to call it, didn't show up. Not hugely surprising. So let's go ahead, right? We knew that it wasn't going to be saved there. So now that we've created one, it says it's undefined. Again, over here it says new method. Now, let's take a look at the database and see what we have there. So select star from method table. Look at that. It's beautiful. It's in there already. All right, so the member ID is 1. We need to change that to method ID. Name is null, right? We're creating with a blank name. Owner is me. The model is 3. That's this current model. And then it gets a public GUID. And then here's it is active, and here's the create date. That is perfect. Just the way we want it. That's a great start. So, first of all, let's correct that little mistake. So we're going to say alter table method table. Oh, gads. I don't remember that syntax off the top of my head. MySQL change column name. I feel like it is something simple like just change. Yeah, alter table, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm going to pull that off to the side. Alter table, method table, change. Member ID to method ID. Int auto increment primary key. Show table. You know what? Let's see if we can just do that without. No? Change it without. Oh dear God. You can change the syntax, require an old and new column name, even if they're the same. You can modify a column to change a column type without it. MySQL change primary key column name. It says it's no different than any other column, huh? Alter table, method table, change member ID to method ID, int 11, not null. But this doesn't have the primary key, but show columns from method table. But it's still there, listed as primary, not null. Okay, good enough. All right, so I just didn't need to say primary key on that. Apparently it carried that over. Great. So we've done that, and that also means public ID, owner, model. We don't even have to change it here because it is auto-incrementing, so we didn't explicitly set the ID of it in there. Great. That's wonderful. That does the things. I'm also running out of water, so I'm going to have to grab a soda or something soon. Okay. We are now creating our methods. Now again, this create is really only the very smallest atomic create to put all of the IDs in there, right? Nothing else has happened to this other than it has a bunch of IDs. Doesn't have a name, doesn't have anything else we need. So those happen in update statements. Right. So this whole system has lots and lots and lots of very, very small actions. So we're going to go back and take a look at our member, right? And we had our member update. And again, we're going to take this, copy, and we're going to save as, or paste. There we go. And it's member update instead of, sorry, method update instead of member update. Those two get confusing. Yes, I want to add that to get. Primary doesn't make sense. Scale doesn't make sense. Hidden doesn't make sense. Deprecated does. Same with dictionary key type, data type. Default value goes away. Minimum list size gone. Minimum, multi-line, precision, contains. Parameters is going to be different. That needs to be a reference to another table. That'll be interesting, actually. Let's see if we can get the basics before we get too crazy here. Owner, maximum list size gone. Required doesn't make sense. Custom attributes. Again, we're going to leave that for now. Default to now. Multiplicity, model, entity. Yes, yes, and yes. Maximum and length go away. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 columns. We should have at least that over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. One of them is the created timestamp, active B. Well, actually, that can be updated. Created timestamp and the under the hood ID. But let's take a look. Okay, so active, active, static, static, deprecated, deprecated, dictionary key type, dictionary key type, data type, data type, name, owner, custom attributes, multiplicity, model, and entity. Beautiful. Again, that's for our own tracking purposes, and that's an under the hood ID, which would never change. So those two would never change, so we wouldn't want those to be in our update function, which makes sense. So update method table. Then we whitelist the property, so it can only be one of these. If it's anything else, it doesn't go. Set the property where the public ID is the one that was passed in. And entity property statement. Entity. Generate update entity property statement. Update method table. Entity table set entity foreign key is equal to entity ID. That is if this is the property. If the property is an entity. Oh. Ooh. Okay. Yes, that makes sense. So this is a special update statement because the entity that gets passed in is going to be a public ID, but this is an internal entity foreign key reference and therefore needs to be translated. So that's what this code is doing. So for everything else, it's just a simple update. This one, there's a quick lookup when we do the update. Okay, so you prepare one statement in one case, the other statement in the other, value ID owner. All right, let's give it a shot. Let's see how that goes. Clean up my screen here a little bit. I got like 8 zillion things going on. I don't even know if anybody's asking me questions. Nope, nobody's asking me questions. It's all good. All right. So now, one of the great things is we're working on the backend API, so we don't have to restart our page every time. Let's go ahead and select everything from the method table. All right, so we have one method. It doesn't have a name. It has public ID, blah, blah, blah. So now we have it, and we will call it my first method. And while previously that had generated a whole bunch of 500s, now it is generating a whole bunch of 500s. That didn't work. Nope. That didn't work at all. Okay, so the question is, what am I doing? I am writing code that writes code, which is really cool. So in this case, we have a music database, and this music database stores songs and has artists and genres and stuff like that. And so this provides a high-level view of what the software design looks like. And then you can go over here to render code and say, what would the HTML form for that look like? And here's a really ugly HTML form where it has a song, title, artist, published date, blah, blah, blah. And what would this code look like in PHP? Well, it would download. Oh, here it comes. Oh, and that doesn't work because gedit wants to try to execute it or something. And then it downloads a whole bunch of code, right? But here's my song, and here's my update code for a song. Let's try opening that in LibreOffice. There we go. Right, and so this is what that would look like in PHP, right? Our song has a title and an artist and published date and genre, that kind of thing. And so you can say, generate a MySQL database or generate this, that, or the other thing. And it will do it. Mostly, kind of. We're still working on it. Leave closed. So that is what I am doing. Okay. So we have a method called myFirstMethod that when I run an update on the method, immediately crashes. Localhost 8080 Draco model method update. I don't know why that is causing some problems. But that is clearly causing some problems. I'm getting 500s out of it. I'm about to show you why I love doing web dev. All right, so that's in the method table. Method update, update method table set. Property equal to the value, where the public ID is equal to the ID, and the owner is the owner. All right, and the only item that we have has this as a public ID that ends in FF9. Here it is here. There's that very same ID that ends in FF9. So what we're going to do is we are going to take this GET request. We're going to just copy it. Because this is a RESTful web service, I can just paste it just like that. And I can see Draco Model API, method update. Right, so that's the ID of the thing that I want to update, and that's the value that I want to update it to, and I want to update the name. And for some reason, it does not love me. Failed to open method-update.php. Says that file does not exist. I'm seeing it right here. Save all. Might just need to restart Google App Engine. Yeah, let's try restarting Google App Engine. All right. Okay. Starting admin server. Refresh and nothing. Check on this, and sure enough. Failed opening required home user development, Draco software home, Draco model API method update.php. I can swear, terminal, new terminal, I can swear that that exists. CD development / Draco software home, Draco model API ls There it is. Oh, so much fail. Method create named correctly. Method update underscore instead of a dash. I'm sorry, Linux. You're right. I'm wrong. I'm a horrible human being. Where is it? Rename. This is why I auto-generate a lot of my code, because, you know, underscores and dashes, they confound me sometimes. Oh, look at that. All right, so now I put that in there, and I'm getting an array back called my first method with an ID for that, and the owner is that, and I think it actually went into the database. Let's take a look. Oh, there it is, method ID 1, my first method. And there's the owner and the model and the ID. And everything is super hunky-dory. That actually worked. And then I can say it's static. And I come here and I look for static as a Boolean, and that didn't work. What about deprecated? Nope, that didn't work. Does any of those work? That seemed to be working. The name is still working. Yep. All right. I unchecked deprecated. And nothing happened. Oh, it doesn't seem to be wired up to anything. All right. Let's see here. Well then. Return type of my first method. Maybe it'll be an integer. Ooh, that worked. Look at that. Data type is integer. Excellent. So this tool is now taking our rough method information and is saving it. And is list. Multiplicity. Yes, list. Excellent. And dictionary key type, that's where we get a little tougher, right? It's a dictionary indexed by string. I have a habit of doing that. I like my string key value pairs. Data type is still an integer, right? And dictionary is string. So in C#, that means that if we were doing this in C#, it would look something like my private. Oh, actually, no, public. Public. Dictionary string int my method, right? It would look something like that in C#. All right, so that goes. All right, so those attributes work. All right, and let's make a note here in our to-do list. Let's do static method static boolean does not save. Method static method deprecated boolean does not save. All right, so we are just making a note of those two. I'm not actually that worried about them. They're not the high profile issue that some of these other things are. The fact that we're getting these in and out is great. So the next thing is going to be loading them, because right now what happens is we have them stored in the database and then nothing will happen. So if I refresh this page, that method won't show up, even though it is beautifully captured in our database. Right. So that's going to be the next thing that we work on. I'm going to go grab another soda because I am getting very thirsty and this is a lot of talking. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask them. I will answer them as soon as I get back. And I shall return momentarily. Did you miss me? Told you I'd be right back. Oh. Roar. Hey, Ellen. All right. We are, in fact, right back. I'm like a ninja. Or maybe not. But your timing is impeccable. Okay. So we have our methods going in, and that's a beautiful and wonderful thing. And it makes me very, very happy deep down inside. These methods have parameters. Actually, you know what? It is 9:55. We don't have a super huge amount of time left this evening. We have some. I'm wondering, this doesn't even look like it's firing these at all. That makes me sad. Let's see if it fires something when I add a parameter. Test single integer default 0, which means it's optional. Done. Okay. Okay, it does fire when we add a parameter. So what do we tackle? Do we tackle the fields that aren't firing, or do we tackle the fields that are? Well, you know what? We've already gotten a fair amount of these parameter and method things going in. Let's go ahead and just finish out these parts of the API here. See what we can do here. So our method update, we have the ID, we're changing the value. Okay, so the dictionary key type over to string. So that was a previous operation. Parameter update. And then this is a parameter ID, the value is test, and the property is name. Parameter update. So I'm not seeing a parameter create, which is interesting. That's actually okay. But the other thing that I'm not seeing that is a problem is when I created this parameter, right? It gave me the name, it gave me the data type, it gave me the multiplicity, it did not give me the default value, and it did not initiate a create first, which it doesn't have to, but it didn't initiate this default value, didn't initiate that optional checkbox, and it didn't tell me who the parent method was, which is kind of sort of super duper important. And then when I close that, I get all of those same messages again. 1, 2, 3, and then the error is 1, 2, 3. All right, so I can only really tackle one of these tonight. Let's see. Do not drink water with bubbles. Hi, hi. I love my bubble water, so I know it's not great for me, but it's like it is my remaining vice. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's handle these static and deprecated checkboxes, because that's really going to bug me. Hold on a sec. No, let's change that. At least when we save the parameters, it is generating these update statements. So let's go ahead and handle those. Now, I don't think the phrase parameter-update shows anywhere. Right. Nowhere in my code, because it really is taking the items class and then attaching that to this update statement. So let's just go ahead and do, all right, so this is our autosave function. Let's see here. And here's the update URL. So this is getting autosaved. And so as soon as it's autosaved, it gets uploaded to the server, which is exactly what we want. However, not everything is getting autosaved, which is not what we want. So let's go ahead and inspect this guy, this done button, and see parameter modal save button. That is the button. And let's find out what we can find out about it. All right, so that's where it exists in our HTML code. Here is what happens when somebody clicks on it. Here we go. This is what we want. All right. We have our ID as current target ID inputs. For each parameter row, right, we find the parameter name and the data type and the multiplicity. So here are the things that we are talking about. These three get saved correctly. What isn't getting saved correctly is the default checkbox and the method that it's associated with. Those aren't here. So let's take a look at our param code, see if those things exist in the data structure. They should. It might just be a type of member. Yep, sure enough. So a parameter is a member. It has a few things though. Default value and optional go there and there, as they should. All right, so then we need to do this append to undo. So that's what starts the autosave routine. So as soon as you say you're appending something to the undo list, we can just add that to the autosave and it goes up and it saves. So if it has a new value, then we append to undo default value, the old value, and the new value. So we need to pick up this old val. Yes. And that's how we do that. So that recurses in, grabs the old value, provides that, and then we can just do that. That's great. Simple, straightforward, easy to follow. That is the kind of code that I like. Optional, old value, new value. All right. Now that was a web interface edit. So we need to go here and music. There we go. Oh yeah, we're not loading. Oh, that was the other thing that we should have done. We're loading our methods. All right. Let's just check this real quick. ABC is a single decimal with a default value of 4. Done. Right, we're getting errors on all of these. That's fine. But what I'm looking for, yes, is now that we've added those things to the undo list, we have this parameter update. There's the GUID, there's the value of 4, and the property is the default value. So that's getting propagated up, or at least generating that message. Here we have that ID, and then that whether or not it is optional has been set to true. So those messages are now getting propagated up correctly. So that's at least another couple of bugs resolved. I'm going to hold off on storing those in the database, because as we're doing this, it has come to my attention that we need to load the methods from the database, and that's super duper important. And that's really got to be the next thing that we do, just so that we close out at least this one area of functionality. So now we're going to take this member read and we're going to paste it in there, and it will become method-read. Yes, we want to add it to get. And now we're going to look for member and replace with method. So we're going to replace that one and that one. And that's the only time the words have shown up. This is a very long column list that we know is not going to work. So method ID, active, yes. Static, yes. Primary key didn't make sense. Scale, hidden, those don't make sense. Deprecated. Does, dictionary key type, this should all be very familiar if you've been watching all evening. Data type, default value, makes sense for parameter, but not for this. Minimum list size, minimum value, gone. Name goes away. Name stays, multiline goes away, precision goes away, contains goes away, owner stays, maximum list size, required, custom attributes we'll leave for now, default to now doesn't make sense, multiplicity does, and public ID makes sense. So pull all of that from public ID, and then maximum value goes away. Pull that from the method table, the model table, and the entity table, because we need to do a bunch of security checks. And we do all that, and then we do the rest. And we say, okay, that looks pretty reasonable. We're going to go all the way up to the top of our page, because when we loaded this, we had a member read, and so we're going to borrow that member read. We double API there. Right, so these are all of the members, and so we'll try method read, and there's nothing in there for that particular model, which we know is incorrect. Well, at least it didn't blow up on us and we didn't have the wrong file name again. So, a little bit of progress. All right. So, the other thing that I want to check is we have this GUID for the model ID. So, this 5BE, I just want to select star from model table. So this 5BE. All right, so that is model 3. And then select star from method table. And so these are part of model 3. So those should have pulled, but they did not. Oh boy. And I just want to check. Member read.php worked. Method read did not. Okay. Let's debug it. Let's print statement. Let's print that monstrosity first. And then print our $data. All right, so we can now take that, gedit, right? That's our big, long, blah-de-blah. And then our model ID, is that? That goes there. And that owner ID, which is a big, long, ugly integer, goes right there. And then I'm looking for the colon, and it doesn't exist. And that is a string. It is a string of only numbers, but it is a string, even though I just said it's an integer. That was, in fact, a lie. All right, and then we paste it in there, and we see what blows up. Or nothing blows up. Why does nothing blow up? I mean, we didn't select any data, so it didn't work. 18 blah 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 ends with 18. Yeah, okay, so that owner ID is okay. And the model public ID is that. Yep. Method table E, model table M, entity table T. Entity foreign key. Wait a minute. Ooh. Our entity foreign key isn't filled out. That's why. Public ID, owner, model, update, right? And then we had this entity, and that was that funky thing there. So we have an issue where, let's go ahead and refresh, pull open the music, and we'll add this one to the artist. And so we add method update. Oh. Value is object and properties data type, so that's not okay. Method update, values undefined, properties undefined, so that's not okay either. So these are a couple of update statements that aren't any good. Right, so here's our method create. There's the proper ID, there's the model ID, and so that creates it. Our method has new method name, but what we don't have, and again, like we actually saw with the other thing, is we're not associating it with the entity. On create. So we need to go to our method, and we're going to compare that with our member. So where do we remember? There we go. Object.parentID is equal to a function. And that gets appended to the undo. So here's our method. And we overrode it. All right. So actually, in this particular case, because this is a subclass, this method is a subclass of member, I just want to get rid of that modification and go back to my parent's behavior. All right. Okay. New method name, method create, ID, method update, method update. All right, that didn't work. Let's try the opposite. Let's just try copying and pasting that behavior in there. So pass in an ID. A new method. Second here, we're going to have to see if that's actually getting called, but method add method update, method create. Again, there's the ID, there's ID. Name, properties undefined. Value is undefined. I wonder if that's supposed to be our parent IDs and whatnot. All right, let's see here. So let's just at the very end say object.parent ID, and then we'll give that the parent that it was given, and see. And you know what? I'm going to do a console.log parent change and that ID. I just want to see what's going on over the hood, under the hood. Oh, come on. Music. All right. Method add. Parent change. Okay, and so it's passed in an object. All right, so that's this object one. No, that's the data type. Okay, there it is. The property of entity. So that's firing now. All right, so that parent ID, we're going to pass that in as parent ID. Let's try that again. name, create, properties undefined, properties data type. Why is that property undefined? Data type, properties undefined, values undefined, method, properties name. Oh, well, so parent.id, probably not actually a thing. All right. Let's try this again then. Console.log parent. Let's find out what the proper thing is. All right. So as you can see, one of the reasons why we do this in a test database is because it gets filled with garbage. Where is this call to parent ID? Console.log new parent :parent. Add. Properties undefined, value is undefined, entity. Ah. All right, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not seeing where it says new parent, though. It seems to be very haphazard. But so this new property, oh, well, that was the property. Yeah, I need a method. There we go. New method, properties name. There's the model ID for the create. There's the update, again with the undefined, the data type. Member update, method update. Right. This is our method. So this is not getting called. This parent ID is not getting called at all. Okay. Parent changed to ID. All right, so let's try its parent class and see what the hell's going on here. Something's really wrong. Cannot read structure type of null. Well, that's interesting at least. All right, so parent changed to. So definitely that code was the one that's being called. There's the object, and ID is a function of that object. All right. parent.id. And then we say the parent changes. Oh, geez. Things are starting to break. Whoa, things are really broken. Did not like it when I did that. All right, again, name which is a new method. Not seeing any other errors. Properties undefined. I don't know what the deal is with that. And again, the method, what I thought was going to be called, isn't getting called anymore. It's like there's an error coming in here. All right. I think I know what's going on. All right. If type of ID equals object, ID is equal to ID.id. I think some cases an object is getting passed in, and other cases an actual ID is getting passed in, and that is causing all kinds of hell. Yeah, see now everything's working again? That is exactly what was happening. All right, methods, add. So now when I add a method, I'm seeing a data type and the entity property. My latest method. All right, let's pull up the database and see what we see. My latest method, right? ID 12. There's my user ID. There's the model number. There's the GUID. I'm still not seeing any foreign key on this. Even though I should name. Copy. Actually, yeah, localhost 8080 Draco model. All right, and now I am manually updating that entity. Let's see if it has an effect. Yes, it does. That came out okay now. And now when I read the methods, I'm actually getting it back. Excellent. So here's the problem. We seem to have a data creation issue. Because what's happening is I am calling new member, and new member is creating a member. But when new member creates a member, because this derives from member, it's trying to save it to the member table, even though it's a method, which is causing some of these issues. So I think it may just be prudent to go ahead and split it out and make members and methods separate things because of the way that we're saving data to our database. Right, this deprecated and this static. These aren't going to work as we want. Yep, I think it's time for these guys to part ways. Boy. Seems really kind of a waste, though. Shouldn't have to do that. The issue is, and as I'm sure the astute have noted, is when we are creating them, that a couple of things fire. Right, that method update and that method update and that method update all happened before this method create. And that's a bit of a problem. Okay, let's see here. So we have, with this object hierarchy, we have a chicken and egg scenario. Again, this is a lot of code, though, that I don't really want to duplicate. Member. Parameters. Heisenberg. Uh-oh. Yeah. Now, what's even worse is a Heisenbug, which is a bug that exists when you run a program but disappears as soon as you start debugging it. And then as soon as you start running it again, appears again. I call those a Heisenbug because you know the effect of the bug. But as soon as you look at it, you change the nature of it, and therefore you can't know its effect and its trajectory, you can't know its location and its effect at the same time. All right. I don't know. I feel like we should be able to make this work somehow. All right. Yeah, it's funny. I have Hey Matten on LiveCoding says he's a JavaScript noob. And honestly, I feel like I'm a JavaScript noob too. There's so much to JavaScript in terms of crazy things that you can do. I don't know if any of us ever fully graduate from the numbishness. Setting parent. Okay. Right. So that should all happen. Why does method create take so long to do? Because it goes back to you, doesn't it? Parent class. No, maybe not. member create music. All right, let's see here. Method. So when we create that, we do a member create. Right, those 7 are from when I loaded it. This is when I kicked it off. And then I set the parent. But then the dash create comes later. So I'm wondering, model create, model create, model create, model create, create URL. Here we go. All right, if property is active and new value is true, so that's the save function. Right, and that goes into activate. So we might be able to, not ideally efficiently, but go into member here and say undelete. Yes. obj.undelete. So that takes in no parameters. We'll automatically try to activate it, and then we set the data type, and then we'll try to set the parent. And it might undelete it again, and that's okay. That's why it's nice to have an atomic function like that. It's not ideal, but at least make the bug go away so that we can get our sanity back. Add. All right. So then, okay, now we have our method create first, then our method update of the data type, which we know is wrong, and then the entity of it. So now we have this new method that we've just added, should be the latest one in our database. There we go, and it's already associated with an entity. Huzzah. So I forced it. I mean, let's be honest, I brute forced it to make sure that the create happened before these other things happened. So we have some interesting instances with these cascading creates for this particular JavaScript framework, which I will have to endeavor to resolve in future versions of my code. Oh, more familiar faces. Hey there, Lycan. But for now it goes, right? And it's getting into the database, which means that when I refresh, there we go, it's coming back out of the database, which is super duper important. So I'm going to close that. And then I'm going to come back up here to my code, and I'm going to look for my console.logs. Oh, wow. I don't want the ones in Pixie. I just want the ones in my code. Right, okay, so that one, we'll clean those up later. That's not really something for this. Oop, okay. So now that we are loading that, and we're actually able to see something, right, we can go back to our method read, and I think this actually works. So we will refresh this without all of the print statements. Goodbye. Goodbye, debug print statements. Okay. So for this model, give me all of the methods. And so we have method ID here and the method ID there. And yeah, see, this data type of object is a problem. Okay. But at least we're getting something in and out. Let's make a note of that, because I don't think we're going to get it tonight because it's already 10:40. Go to our to-do. Method data types being saved as... Right. Okay. But we have our read. That's at least grabbing the data, even though some of it's wrong. Right? That is wrong. However, at least it's grabbing it. The names are right. The owners are right. Custom attributes seem to be okay. Entity, foreign keys appear to be okay. So now we need to go to our user agent. And we have, this is where we're loading things. So this is loading members. So loading methods is going to work really similarly. So now we're back into PHP code. And so instead of member read or method read, get the feeling we're going to be doing that a fair amount. It's actually member method ID, you know. Should have just gone for the search and replace on this. All right, we'll just keep mem and mem IDX. Add method, parent add method. Refresh structure methods. I don't even know if that's a thing. Yep, it is. Okay. So, pretty much a search and replace job. Let's see if that works. Nope. Didn't work. Didn't work at all. Cannot read property on of null. Alright, so one thing is... Alright, let's clean up that one at least, since it keeps showing up. Cannot read property on of null. Entity add method. Okay. Not sure what that is coming from or doing. Visualization JavaScript 71. Where's my line? Okay. Event. Okay, so on add entity member, on add method. All right. Entity add method. All right, so that's fairly straightforward. Cannot read property on of null. So p1.on. All right. So p1 getting it passed into entity add method is null for some reason. I'm kind of actually just gonna see what happens if this is this really just the last bit here, or is this symptomatic of something else? I'm just gonna comment it out. Yeah, it's symptomatic of something else. Gonna read property parent of null. Yes, null is getting passed in here. Console.log. All right, let's see here. Lycan, your name is showing up. P1. I do that sometimes. I'll use somebody's name in my code. Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's what we suspected. Thank you, Lycan. You're very useful. So now we got to find our user agent and figure out, actually, visualization, entity on entity add method. Okay. So I am going to guess something is happening here. Console.log. Who else? Deviant. Welcome, Divine One. So, just adding some breakpoints, trying to figure out what's going on. Okay, so when we get into this function, we at least have an ID, and it appears to be pretty darn reasonable. So the item ID is that ID, and then that method is a blank thing. If type of ID is undefined, then we do that. Otherwise, we find the component by ID and get the object. All right. Music. Met is null by the time it gets there. Find component by GUID. Entities, members, methods. Good. So that's very interesting. Model add method. If our component is model.find component by GUID, member parent ID. So let's go ahead and say log glitch and mem. That should be something. Yep. That's not just a something, like that is the full, like temp1.name. Like, there it is. Temp1.id. Yep. Model.find component by GUID. Temp1.id. And it's coming back with an object, and the object type is method. And yeah, that's my latest net method. Like, that is the proper thing that it's coming back with. So it's finding the component. hell is going on here, folks? Because it's definitely... console.log. I have a sneaking suspicion. Hey, Matin. Maybe we don't have just an ID. Maybe that is my problem. No, we have just an ID. And that good. 9070. Let's double check our database, see if that's in here. Public ID should be ending in 9070. Ooh. Oh, there it is. E7C6, right? E7C6, yep. Log net. Object null, parent none. Why is that not working? Model add method. Component. Find component by GUID. Oh man, it's 10:52. It's almost. Gotta get going here. I hate to leave this bug sitting over my head. Here's what I don't get. Here's what I don't get. Console.log. First ID, right? And that is there. Second ID. Third, and I'm going to do head and search for the met. Because we have that ID. That ID is passed in. And then we create a new ID just in case. So we're walking through that. First, yep, there. Second, there. Third. And that 9070, like that ID, model dot members properties dot methods. Oh. We're only seeing one method in there. So that might be our issue. Console.log, adding method mem. Adding method. first, second, third. But we're only adding the one method. Why are we only adding one method? One. Properties. AB8F, and that is the only one that we seem to be adding. Alright. In here, we're changing the memIDX to metIDX. Place. Okay, that's good. Nope. Hey, Williamsby. Welcome aboard. All right. Adding method. Go away. I see a bunch of methods here. What I don't see zero. What I don't see is a bunch of methods here. And I don't know why that is. Console.log Williamsby response. Good. That just helps me find stuff quick and easy. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is what I would expect. This is exactly what I would expect out of this. Again, we know that the data type there is wrong. Was that causing problems? I don't think so. It's just a string at this point. Right. Method ID, and then the parent that it's related to. Some of these are going to be the same thing, right? That's going to be associated with the same parent as that one, and that's fine. And that method ID, ooh. Ooh. And 70. Oh, no, okay, so those are different method IDs. They both end in 8. Yeah, okay, similar numbers, but they're different. Okay. Right, 9070, C870. All right. And that one have the same name. That's fine. That's allowed. Responses, okay. What the hell is going on? What the hell's going on? Because before it'd only do the first one. Alright, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright. So the problem is it's not looping through everything. Zero. Uh-oh. All right, so that's mem, and we're going to change that to met because it's a method. Just to help make sure that we're not getting any kind of corruption or anything from another variable above. Okay. Members, load method. Oh, well. Is that it? Just because I had that name drawn? I don't think so. You never know. Nope. Again, console.log, and we're going to log ln and met idx. Right, so if we refresh, hit up music, right, we get to the first one, and then we don't make it all the way through. But if we get rid of all this stuff, we get through just fine. So for some reason, we're not looping through, and it's capturing the error and not showing it to us. LN1, LN2, LN3, LN4, LN5, LN6, LN7. Okay. Well, it's going to make a huge mess in the database. Need to increment our reference count. We need to do that there too. Music. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all of that goes just fine. All right. Adding method, adding method, adding method. And those go in. And these are not members, these are methods. Those are being all right. Four, 6, 7. Oh, there we go. Is this getting into the heart of it? Do we not have the parents loaded yet? No. Should, model read, enumeration read, entity read, and then members, methods, and notes. Those all happen after. Okay. That works. I think it's this next line of code. Yep. So this parent ent.add method. Method ident. And that was broken before. Should work now. But it doesn't. Alright. So let's clean up some of these. We know that those are all coming across. The LN mark there is actually still helping us keep track of what items come and go. They're adding methods. So it's this parent ent.add method. Okay. Adding method. First, second, third. Ah, well, third in this case actually is getting something back. That's as it should be. So before that was getting null. All right. Changing the method's name to new method doesn't necessarily make sense. Undelete is always a safe operation. Okay, p1.on is not a function. Model visualization, JS. Console.log PHP reject, thank you, P1. All right, well, we have passed in the object for PHP reject. That is coming in, and that is not null. But what it isn't, what it isn't is what we'd expect, because it's a search result, not an item. Hot damn. Look at that, they loaded. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That doesn't seem right. And I know that they're not all named to my latest method. I don't think. I don't know. Let's take a look at under the hood. Model.properties.methods. Boy. Alright, you know what? Well, in a bunch, they're all called new method. And a few, they're all called null. so I think we have another issue. But that is making progress. Adding method. All right. So let's go ahead and see here. Method index. Oh, there's the name. Music. So we get the same thing getting added over and over and over again. Log net equals comma net. Let's take a look at that method under the hood, see what it's doing. All right. Oh. Object event types. Okay, no properties. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. All right. Met dot name. This seems wrong. Or not. New method, latest method, and then my latest method. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's interesting that they're all labeled that and the counts don't add up. Met dot. You know what? I'm also going to check the IDs. Okay, that ID is different than that one, and 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 that one. All of those IDs are different. And they all seem to be coming from the database. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is how they are coming back from the database. So we may have a problem in our query, but at least we're interpreting it correctly with our UI. All right, what's the difference between PHP and WebStorm? So the biggest difference between PHP and WebStorm is that PHP Storm has better PHP support. WebStorm is a kind of a subset of the functionality of PHP Storm. Yeah, I mean, they're actually pretty much the same product. Just a little bit better PHP support. And so since I use PHP on the back end, that's what I use here. All right. Method, all right. This is a different method. Another method. Uh-oh. I'm not seeing update statements come up. Yeah, I think. I added too many reference counts. Try that again. My autosave wasn't turned back on again. There it goes. Okay, so we see these lots of updates come through, right? But the ID 9070 here, and then further down you'll see C870. So different things are getting different names that I'm adding, and then if we select from the method table, we can see that I have a bunch of names that are starting to come in, get populated. We also have a bunch of things that are null. That's probably when we did a bad data load. And so hopefully if I refresh and pull up the music one again, there it is. Another test, more tests, test. Okay, so the names are coming through now. We just have some bad data in here from some of our bad tests and whatnot. Okay, so I am going to call it a night. It's 11:15. It's longer than I meant to go, but we made a huge amount of progress because now we are saving data, saving methods to the database, and we're able to pull them back out. We don't have everything refined just yet, but we're getting it there. So we're getting to the point where we have a workable alpha. So the question is, what are we working on? And it's a very good question. So I'm going to close a bunch of this stuff out and show people what the heck we're up to. Thanks for stopping by, Lycan. It's always good to see you and other folks as they come and go. All right, so this is a tool used to generate code for authoring stuff. Basically, I want to generate lots of boring code so that I don't have to write lots of boring code. So we had this music database. It's gotten all gunked up from our testing, but that's okay. We can create its younger sibling, Music 2. All right, and this time, this will be an album-centric music database. So we're going to have an album, and that album is going to have properties like name, which is a string, and a release date, which would be a date, and perhaps would have a publisher, right? Except for we don't want a publisher to be a string. We want that to be a reference to a publisher entity. Now, an entity could be a class, it could be a database table. It's kind of a thing that holds things, right? It's really a class in traditional sense. And now we can say, all right, that's a reference over to publisher. So an album has a publisher. Publisher, of course, has a name, and that's a string. We can keep that simple. An album also probably has a genre. And hey, love.
Hey.
Yeah, I know. Okay, and so we have an enumeration of genres. And we'll just add a few: pop, rock, techno, disco, country. Right, so we just add a few genres, and then our album references genre. Hooray! Okay, so that's all well and good, right? So you start building this out and start seeing, okay, how do all of these things work? But what's really cool about it is that you can just go over here to render code and say, okay, generate a MySQL database. Show me what a MySQL database for this looks like. And so now here's our enumeration genres table. Here's our album table with our name, release date, publisher. And this is an operational, like you can just copy and paste this right into MySQL and it will create the database for you and it will actually go. Like, here is a real database generator. And then you're like, okay, that's cool. Now I have a database. Well, I need, maybe I need some JavaScript code. Well, here's our JavaScript code. You just click that and it generates it. Name, release date, publisher, genre, that kind of thing. Here's a publisher, and the publisher only has a name. Or maybe you're like, I didn't want to do that in JavaScript. Maybe I'll do it in C#. And it will generate something in C#. And I have no idea what it's generating. Oh, look at that. In the namespace music 2, it has an enum of genres. And there they are. This is an actual, very basic C# file, but that would actually go. And here is a publisher, right, with a string, which is a name, and so there's a class in the namespace that is an actual C# thing. This album, I'm sure, isn't as much as real. Oh no, look at that. It is better actually. So string, date, time, publisher, right, which is a publisher class, and genres. You might actually be able to compile that, and then you'd have your generic object structure based on what you've generated here. So that's basically what we've been working on and what we're up to. So we are getting closer, actually, to an alpha. Super excited about that. Hopefully that'll be in the next couple of weeks. But I'm going to go ahead and get things wrapped up for tonight. So if anybody has any questions or thoughts, feel free to toss them into chat. I'm happy to answer them as I close down for the evening. Okay, so a bunch of new things, some edits, and then updated, I'm sorry, able to create, update, and read methods. Used to start. Commit. Review. No, I don't need you. Okay, so this is why. All right, you are not actually helping me here. All right. Let's see here. Get. And no, I can't push. God damn it. Sorry, Git in PHP Storm was trying to be too clever and shows me all of these errors and whatnot for things that I know aren't errors. It's just not actually that helpful. All right, but we have all of our code committed and updated. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy that up to Google App Engine and call it a night. Sorry, Syrianx, or Syrianx. I'm terrible with pronouncing usernames. You joined just in time for us to log out for the night. So I hope you all have a good one, and I will see you next week. All right, take care, everyone.